We are remembering the life and looking back on the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died at 84. And to help us do that, we're joined now by Andrew Young, a civil rights leader who worked with Jackson and Martin Luther King Jr., and who went on to become a congressman, mayor of Atlanta, and ambassador to the UN. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate it. One of the wonderful things...
Oh, it's my pleasure.
One of the wonderful things about having you here is you met Jesse Jackson long before he was the Jesse Jackson we know in public, when he was still a student at a protest in Selma. Do you recall your first impression of the young man?
My first impression of Jesse was really very good, because it was after the police had beaten the church people back into the church. And we didn't want them to come out. They wanted to have a little confrontation, and we were just trying to get everybody to calm down. And I was standing there at the door and had been there for a couple hours. Jesse came up and said, "You look tired." I said, "I sure am tired." And he said, "Look, why don't you go catch a nap, and I'll stay here till you get back." And he said, "We just want to keep people from getting themselves hurt or provoking the police." And he said, "I can do that. You go get a nap." And it was so considerate. But it was typical of Jesse that he was a natural leader. And if something needed doing, it didn't matter whether it was his responsibility, he offered to help. And I think you saw that throughout the movement with him. He really was a quarterback. You know, he went to Illinois hoping to play quarterback, and I think they put him in, I don't know where he was, but he left Illinois, University of Illinois, and came back to A&T, where he did play quarterback, and he was. You know, he was about 6'3", maybe 4.
Yep.
And a couple of 225, 240. And
Ambassador, Mr. Ambassador, you say he was a gifted, a natural leader. Part of that was his gifted ability to hold an audience in his hand. He was a unique and powerful speaker. Where did that voice come from? Those lines that he's so famous for. Do you have a favorite?
You know, I don't. In fact, I almost don't like that. But they were catchy for the people, and it's part of his growing up in the black church. And growing up in the black church, people tend to develop serious religious symbols that also turn out to be great folklore.
I like that. I also like, when you look back at his approach to politics, he believed in the power of hope before Obama made hope something you see on a political sign. He said America is going to get better and better. Where do you think that joyful quality to his advocacy came from?
Well, if you've ever been to a black church on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night even, it's a happy occasion. And the more we have been impressed, depressed, and the more people have, put pressure on the community, the higher we rise. Dr. King used to say that black people had more faith sometimes than even the biblical prophets. Said that in Jeremiah said, "Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no future there?" And black men and women changed it to, as Dr. King said, they straightened out Jeremiah's question mark into an exclamation point and said, "There is a balm in Gilead that makes the wounded whole. There's a balm in Gilead that heals the sin-sick soul. And when I get discouraged and think my work's in vain, then comes the Holy Spirit to revive my soul again. And Jesse Jackson was the son of that kind of Christianity.
I understand, Mr. Ambassador. We are coming up on 58 years since Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, and we are losing day by day that living connection to him as a man. Jesse Jackson was one point of connection. You, sir, are another. What do you want people to remember?
But I don't think we're losing anything.
Tell me more.
Well, no, I think that when I watched Dr. King die on the balcony in the Lorraine Hotel, I felt that he wasn't dead. In fact, the bullet entered his chin and severed his spinal cord. But bullets travel faster than the speed of sound. And I have a feeling, and I had it then, that he felt no pain. And there's a verse in the Old Testament where Elijah went to heaven in a flaming chariot. And standing up there on the balcony in the Lorraine Motel, I looked out over the Mississippi River, and it just, the image that I have was Martin Luther King going to heaven in a flaming chariot. He never left us, and he never left Jesse. And I think that the verses and the courage that, I mean, Jesse has been sick, really sick, for the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, it's been hard for me to, I haven't even wanted to talk with him because it's painful to hear him struggle with Parkinson's. And yet he did. And he came to my 90th birthday, which was almost 4 years ago, and slipped out of his chair and fell on the ground. And it took 4 people to get him back into the chair. But he was struggling then, but that was 4 years ago. And I don't think he ever gave up. And I don't know that death is an end. We're a part of the Judeo-Christian tradition that we believe that there is life after death. And I don't know what separates us from each other, but I've never felt separated from Martin Luther King or my grandmother or my wife or my daughter that died of cancer a few months ago. Death is not an end. And the spirit of Jesse Jackson and the courage of Jesse Jackson is not only passed on in his children, but in the hearts of all of us that were inspired by him.
Ambassador?
And often I was inspired by him when I didn't agree with him. But
that's beautiful.
He'd win you over.
Well, I think that is a beautiful note to end on. Disagreement and yet friendship, and the idea that death is not the end, and that on some level he is still here with us. Ambassador, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.